Hey YouTubers, good morning, it's Rob Moffett. Guys, today I thought we'd talk about prepping and prepping supplies. You know, it's almost time for hurricane season and I'm looking around and seeing what my preparations are, and I'm realizing a lot of the stuff I have for hurricane preparation is the same as regular prepping. And I thought it'd be kind of fun today to go over a list of items I have or I want to have for my preparations, my prepping. I need to start off by saying that I'm not an expert prepper. There's a lot of people who know more than I am. So the things that I recommend or things that I say that I'm doing, I'm not going to be dogmatic and say that this is what everybody should be doing because I'm the expert. No, this is what I'm doing. And if you reply politely without, calling me too bad of a name, I'd be happy to listen to you, or if you think I'm wrong and you have a better idea. This is just the preparations I've made, and in a few cases, the preparation I still want to make. Um, I'm not an expert. I live in a semi-tropical area, so if you live in Alaska, that's going to be different for me. I'm in an urban area. That's also different. I don't have access to a lot of wild game. I live in a community with 2 million other people. I plan on bugging in. Also, I have a lot of family ties of people who are totally unprepared, so that's going to take a big dent in everything I've done and have and know. Basically, I think I could get by like 6 months okay without no water, power, and food, but 12 months would be, what's the word? Very problematic. Um, let's face it, 99.9% of all preppers are probably going to die from heart disease or cancer or a car accident or jealous lover or it's not going to be because they didn't have a bag of Band-Aids or chicken soup. It's you can't prepare for everything, and you know it would be wonderful if the preparations we've made never need to be used. But it's also kind of good to be prepared, or we wouldn't be doing it. So let's get started and stop yammering here. Uh, I've got about 30 things. So if you're a prepper, this might be interesting. If you're not a prepper, I don't know if you want to listen to all this, but this is my list. I'd be interested in hearing from you about what's on your list and what you think about mine. The first two things are the most important and things you cannot buy on Amazon. They're your health, your physical, mental, spiritual health. If you're not healthy or you're not getting better, you're not going to do too well. Um, that's one of the most important things you can work on is not your bullets and your band-aids and your beans. You need to work on your health, your physical, mental, and spiritual health. And if it's not getting better every week, you need to put a plan in action. I'm not getting better every week, but I'm better than I was last year, and I hope to keep getting better. But it's a process. We get better, we get worse, we go forward, we go back, but we got to keep our eye on the ball and just keep working to being better because if we're in bad shape, we're taking 12 different medications. If if there's a situation, you're not going to last very long and all your preparations will be for nothing. The second thing that you can't get on Amazon is the thing you're going to need almost as much as your health is your relationship with your family, your friends, your neighbors, your community, because we're going to survive with people and help with people and by helping other people. By living alone like the Unabomber, it's not going to work. It might not work even with other people, but we all need a gang. Like Kurt Vonnegut once said, we all need a gang, and this is one of my weakest areas. Um, I mean, I have wonderful family, friends, neighbors, but I could do so much better. I think we live so much in isolated, alienated relationships now because we're all online. We're on Facebook, we're on this, we're on that, but there's no FaceTime, there's no real time with people. We're just talking on phones or we have a half an hour email with someone across the world, but we haven't seen our sisters or brothers or uncle in 6 months. So that's something we all need to work on because in times of trouble, those people in your family, your friends, your neighbors, that's who you're going to need and who they're going to need. And it's what we need to work on. So if you just do those two things alone, you're going to be ahead of almost everybody. But let's get down to the things we could buy on Amazon or eBay or the swap shop. You know, I think for me, civilization is clean running water. Water is the most important thing, other than the two things I just mentioned. And so, if you're going to be bugging out, one of the things I saw on Amazon is a water key I purchased. You can use it to open up the water faucet of any building. Most buildings do not have a faucet or handle. And if you're bugging out somewhere and you run out of water, and we're talking about a survival situation, a lot of times maybe the water system is no longer working. There's no longer water to house the building, but there's still pressure inside the buildings. So you could use this key to open up the water faucet on the outside of buildings. It may not fit some of the really newer commercial buildings, but this will fit most of the faucets on buildings. And you'll be able to get water that's in the system and replenish yourself, because that's the most important thing, water. Next would be water filter straws. Everybody's familiar with. They've become very inexpensive. I recommend them highly. A ceramic water filter, just like the water filter straws, is something you get put in your closet. It'll last for years and years. And when you do need it, it's available and will filter out a lot of the stuff that's in your water. A lot of people don't realize, and I didn't until recently, that you can use sunlight to help sterilize water. And I thought about getting just gallon Ziploc bags. You could easily fill them up with a gallon of water, and you could lay them out on the floor in the sun, and you could help sterilize your water. And they take up almost no space, and they're quite inexpensive. You can use them for so many other things too, but that's one thing I've not seen many people talk about. You could use Ziploc bags to help purify your water. And the last would be the pills, the water for purification pills, the iodine, and the unscented bleach too. Now, whenever we have a hurricane coming, I see people going like chickens with their heads cut off to go get water and get in lines at Publix and home and Winn-Dixie. But I just use my large 6-gallon plastic jugs I buy at Walmart, and they're narrow. They fit in lots of easy places, and just fill them up with my water here at the house before the hurricane comes. And to me, that's a really good way to have water. And if you're going to be using the small water jugs, I made a video on how you can easily make a little faucet so you can wash your hands with your gallon water jug. And hygiene is going to be so important in a situation. And it's a really good video to show you how you can use the water jug to wash your hands with the homemade faucet. Next thing after water is you're going to need food. I am a big fan of netting and nets. I purchased a gillnet. The great thing about a gillnet is it's very effective. It's so effective it's illegal in most places, and I would only use it in emergency situations. But the thing about it is once you set it, there's no labor involved, so it's not intensive like some other methods, and it's very effective at catching fish. And you leave it in overnight and check it in the morning. The next net I like is a cast net. It's a lot more labor intensive, but if you live places where there's migratory fish, like bait fish where I live, you can catch mullet and other bait fish. You can get buckets full in a very short period of time when the mullet are running. And also, if you have the spare energy, you can just use it to cast blindly and see if you can catch shrimp and fish. Finally is bird netting. Something I don't have and something I haven't done, but I've seen people make bird traps with bird netting. It looks very effective and simple to do, and that's something I want to get some bird netting. Now, fishing tackle to make trot lines, that's one of the easiest ways to get fish, and it requires very little energy. Once you set the bait and the hook, you just come back later on, and you can get very small fish to very huge fish. If you're expecting to get huge fish, you want to put like a piece of a rubber tubing to make like an elastic give to the line when the fish strikes, so it doesn't pull the hook out or break the line. The little rubber tubing works great for this. And finally, for fishing, you can use crossbow for certain type of fish like gar and carp that really aren't too skittish around people, because most people consider them trash fish and they don't usually fish for them. So oftentimes the gar and the carp are easy to catch. Or if you have a light at night, you can go along the shore in a boat and get snakehead and other fish with a crossbow at night and a gig. Now for other type of hunting, you could use an air pistol. I like the Crossman. You can, with you pump it up enough, you can, and use a pellet, you can get small birds, small games. Some people say they would use a 22. They would never use the air pistol, but the air pistol is very effective. Also, you can use the air pistol for flies. I've had people tell me they use their air pistol for shooting flies in the house. They pump it up. Of course, you could use a fly swatter, but you may have difficulty using a 22 caliber to get your flies in the house. Other people may complain. Also, I've been watching George Spray for years on his show about slingshots and rubber powered weapons, and I've become a lot more respectful of slingshots and rubber power weapons. So I have a slingshot and some spare rubber to make my own. Now, for personal protection, I like pepper spray. I've rarely ever seen a story in the newspaper on the news that was a bad story that could not be improved by some pepper spray. um, Now, for the big boys, if you're looking at firearms, I happen to like 9mm carbine. One of my most popular, well-liked videos on YouTube is about the reasons I picked a 9mm carbine for my own personal protection home weapon. Also, Mossberg makes a wonderful introductory entry-level shotgun, not too expensive. If you need a pistol, which a lot of people think they do, I recommend you get one same caliber as your rifle, which is why I think 9mm is so good, because there are so many good 9mm pistols out there like the Glock. And it's always good to have some extra ammo too for trading and so on, but I'm not going to go into detail why I think people should have a pistol or a rifle for home protection. But for years I never had one, and once I finally bought one, I consider it one of the smartest things I've ever done. It's like a parachute. I don't ever use it. I don't hope I ever have to use it, but if I do, it's there. The next is the thing that people almost always think about when it comes to prepping is the bulk food, the bulk grain, rice, beans, and milk like that. And I always recommend the same thing as purchase them from the Mormons. You can buy cases of them in the number 10 cans. They're good for 25 years. The prices are reasonable. The shipping is extraordinary. And you do want to rotate, and you do want to have a personality that enjoys cooking and learning how to cook with your food storage. So if you ever do need to use it, it won't be a big shock to your system. You'll know how to do it and what to do with your food. And you won't have to learn, because there is a learning curve with some of this stuff. It's not prepared food. You open a box and put it in the microwave. Next thing is, because I do like cooking and experimenting, is a vitamix. If you have grain, you are going to need to grind it, and the vitamix can do that. It can also make soup. It can blend stuff. It can, if you have a lot of greens, and you can cook them up, and it can blend it into something smooth, and it's palatable. It'll be very easy on your system, good to eat. It's a wonderful survival prepper tool if you have electricity. And I recommend the old 40-year-old ones you can get for like $90 on eBay. That's what I did. I got one on eBay about 5 or 6 years ago. I made a bunch of videos on it too. Next is a folding bicycle. If you're going to be having difficulty getting gasoline for your car, you're going to be needing a bicycle. And I like the folding bicycle because they're usually built rather sturdy, and you can do more things with them. You have a lot more options. You can take them in your car, in your trunk. You can take them on the subway or the train or the bus. They're just cool little bicycles. Um, the next thing is an inflatable raft. You can get Intex inflatable rafts very inexpensively, and they give you a lot of options. I imagine if you were in Katrina in New Orleans during the hurricane, you would have loved to have had an inflatable raft. And a lot of other instances too. If you want to bug out, there's a lot of places that have little lakes and rivers with little islands offshore. You can take a inflatable raft and put it on your folding bicycle and go riding with it and get to where you're going. And then when you get to shore, take your inflatable raft, pump it up, and put your bicycle, and then paddle out to your island, and nobody will even know you're out there. Gives you a lot of options. Candles. I grew up with candles. I always have them for the hurricanes, but once you go to solar lights, you don't look back. They're much better than candles. But the great thing about candles, you put them in the box, they're good for 100 years. You open the box, they're good for another 100 years. There's nothing to go wrong, except that you can burn your house down. So I prefer the solar lights, but I have tons of candles too, because you can cook with the candles too. And of course, to light the candles, you're going to need something to light them. I'm not very good at making fire with flints and so on. There's 14 million videos on YouTube on how to do that. I have a bunch of different lighters inside a container of rice to keep moisture out. I'm hoping this should be fine. Um, the dollar store has a surprisingly large variety of stuff you can use for prepping at very inexpensive prices. I recommend their soaps, the shampoos, and unscented bleach. You want to get the unscented bleach so you can use it to sterilize your water, or not sterilize it, but disinfect it. But that's going to be a big thing, is keeping clean. Hygiene, personal hygiene is going to be very, very important during a situation. So you can get them in bulk at the dollar store. Another thing is first aid supplies at the dollar store. Surprisingly, they have a very good selection too. Don't get the aspirin. A lot of people don't realize many things that's past its retest or resale date is still good, but aspirin is not one of those items. You never want to use aspirin past its sale date, because I think it's acetylsalicylic acid. It turns into something else after time, and it can hurt your stomach really bad, cause it to bleed. While you're at the dollar store, you can get your paper goods. Long term, you won't be using paper goods in a situation, but when you're first getting situated, it's good to have paper goods. You don't have to do a lot of washing and cleaning and cleaning up. And of course, you're going to need your toilet paper. Um, your car. A lot of people I see, they recommend you get tires and store them. You don't want to do that. If you get tires, imagine a tire that's 10 years old and you're riding on it, you're going down the highway at 70 miles an hour. You don't want to do that. Tires will wear out over time, even if they're sitting and haven't been used at all. But the other things, your radiator fluid, brake fluid, power steering fluid, your oil, are all good for almost ever. You can get them inexpensively and store them if you have the space. You're going to need a sewing kit when things break down and learn how to sew stuff. It's not that hard. Adhesives, hot glue, JB Weld, duct tape, epoxy, fiberglass, all these things last for almost forever, and they're wonderful for repairing things. Hot glue especially is you don't even need electricity. You can just heat up the glue with another heat source until it melts. It's very effective on many things. It's one of the few glues that will stick to polyethylene and PVC together. It's interesting. It's not a permanent fix, and also if it freezes, it won't. But if it doesn't freeze, it will stick for a long time, where almost every other glue will come off immediately. Cutting tools. Harbor Freight is great for cutting tools. You can get the small axes, hatchets, knives, machetes, shovels. You also want to get a hoe and a sharpener. Um, there's so many uses for these items. I know people, I know Rob White, he wrote a book, one of my favorite books. He talked about when he lived in Puerto Rico as a young man. His friends who were Puerto Rican, that were boat builders, would practically build a small sailboat using their machetes. You can do a lot with simple hand tools, but you're going to need a good sharpener. And don't forget your shovel because you're going to be digging some holes. Tarps and cordage. When you go to Harbor Freight, get you some tarps and cordage. You can use tarp for so many things. Not just for covering your roof, but let's say you run out of fresh water, you can use it to collect a lot of water in a rainstorm. Or if something happens to your house, you can live outside for a while. It's a lot of things. Mosquito netting is something I want to get, but I don't have. When we do run out of power, over time, all these people who have swimming pools are going to become just giant mosquito havens, and it's going to be difficult. You're not going to have air conditioning, and you're going to want to have the windows open, and it's going to be a really good situation for mosquitoes to become a nuisance to people. And if you have mosquito netting, I think that would make things so much easier. Now for cooking, I have propane and a propane stove because I'm a big fan of Hank Hill and my propane accessories. No, I just have a propane stove, and it's so handy because if you make an alcohol stove, it's there's no control. I mean, they do sell alcohol stoves, but you could get one that would control the heat. But I just have an old propane stove. It works fine. When I go to Walmart, I'll get a few extra cylinders, and they store forever. But you also need to know how to make like a rocket stove and a wood stove and so on if you need to do cooking outside, say you run out of propane or alcohol. The thing is, once you're outside, other people will see you're cooking. That's the great thing about alcohol and propane. You can do it indoors. But I have cooked on a lid from a mayonnaise jar and a plastic bottle of rubbing alcohol and been happy as a clam. So I wouldn't go crazy over cooking. If you're hungry, you're going to find a way to cook. Next thing is, if you have the space, there's a lot of forever foods you can buy that you'll never go bad and will only increase in value over time. There are things like your salt and your sugar and your honey and your vinegar and your baking soda, things like that. You don't ever have to worry about them expiring. So these are pretty much my preparations, things I have, and in a few cases things I want to have. And like I said, I'm only prepared for like 6 months or so. I'm not going to be there forever. But I'm hoping this is something you can listen to and look at and maybe get some hints or tips that are useful. And at the same time, if you see something you can add on to or give me different information about what I've said in a way that doesn't make fun of me too bad or is too disrespectful for YouTube. Alright guys, this is my video for this week. Put new videos on every week, and I've got a bunch of cool people I feature in my playlist, no relation to me. Hope you check them out, and I'll be putting on more stuff. I have a few playlists, and some of them are about prepping. If you go onto my channel, you can check out my playlist. I've got one just on prepping and on frugal survival and so on. Alright guys, this has gone on long enough. Hope it's something that's handy for you guys. Take care and see you out there.